Good things come to those who wait, and Fuse has been waiting for a long time. Ever since his release in Season 8, he has struggled to find any footing against the other strong picks in the game. But after his recent changes in Season 10, Fuse is finally in a powerful state and ready to help you win some games. If you thought a Bang or Gibby ultimate was disruptive, just wait until you play against a good Fuse. What's going on, guys? My name is Valued, and I don't want to waste any more time not talking about Fuse, so let's get right into the good stuff. Starting off the Explosive Enthusiast kit, we have an amazing passive that enables Fuse to get some really good work done with grenades. Grenadier lets Fuse stack 2 frags, 2 arc stars, or thermites in one inventory slot. And it also lets him use his launcher for more distance on his nades. This allows Fuse to be really efficient with his storage, allowing him to carry many more nades than the average legend. And his launcher is pretty insane. It lets you get some serious distance on your nade throws and can make hitting arc star sticks very easy once you get used to it. This launcher, however, can be tough to use in close quarters, especially when nading through a doorway or into a window. Thankfully, the devs have us covered there as well, adding the ability for Fuse to toggle his launcher on and off, having the option to throw grenades the traditional way as well. Having this extra flexibility is nice and just adds to how lethal Fuse can be with grenades. We'll talk in a bit about some cool strats to use this passive shortly. But moving on to Fuse's tactical, Knuckle Cluster. He has his own built-in grenades. This ability lets Fuse launch a cluster bomb out of his launcher that sticks to surfaces and repeatedly lets loose small explosions in the area for about 5 seconds. This was doubled this season, and this 5 seconds feels like forever now. The extra time adds a ton of zoning to Fuse's kit, and with Knuckle Cluster having 2 charges and a newly reduced 20-second cooldown, this ability is officially powerful. These are essentially Fuse's own thermite grenades that he recharges over time, and they can stick to surfaces, including legends. They're also incredible at blocking off doorways and will even destroy a door with just 1 charge. Not to mention, they do a ton of damage to enemy equipment, making Fuse the best legend to destroy Watson walls, rampart barriers, or Loba's Black Market. Octane's pad has a little bit too much health for one cluster to handle, and keep in mind that Watson's ult will block these along with all your other ordinances. And rounding out Fuse's identity of raining down explosives on his enemies from afar, we have his ultimate, the Motherlode. Fuse pulls out a cannon and launches this bad boy into the sky, with it bursting into a ring of fire at the targeted location. Running through the fire does some pretty impressive burn damage that decays over time. And if it's placed properly, this can force most legends to have to choose between staying inside or running through the fire and taking heavy damage. New to Season 10, Fuse also reveals any enemies within this ring of fire for himself and his team. This is a huge buff and adds the urgency that enemies will need to have when getting out of the ring. Now, not only do they risk the damage of the firewall, but they also have an entire squad with perfect vision of them if they stay inside the flames. On open areas of the map, this ability can be devastating, and the range on this bad boy is no slouch. Seriously, you can do some impressive damage in zone control from way further away than any other legend. This range really gives Fuse a ton of utility if he has open sightlines to view enemies as they try to push. Fuse can often deter an enemy push or even turn it right back around on them if they get caught out being over-aggressive. Next, we're going to talk about some quick tips on Fuse. But before we hop into that, we have to talk about a great way to find success in your entire game, and that is with a coaching session over at ProGuides.com. There, you'll be able to find some of the best players in the world, giving some of the best coaching to help you improve your Apex game. The link will be in the description below. Alright guys, with the ability basics out of the way, let's go over some general tips when using Fuse that can really help you find early success with his kit. Alright guys, our first tip involves Fuse's Knuckle Clusters. Don't be afraid to launch these things regularly. If you see an opportunity to block a doorway, launch it downrange to poke an enemy, or send it into a building where a squad is hanging out, then send it. This ability should be your go-to ordnance option when playing Fuse, and you should be spamming it on cooldown if you can. Fuse's power comes from the mayhem he's able to create on the battlefield, so the more explosions and zoning tools you're able to throw out there, the better. So guys, make sure you get creative with how you use these things, and they can be a huge annoyance to enemies trying to maneuver the map, scoring yourself some free damage and info all game long. Alright, for our next tip, on the topic of launching as many explosives as possible, this next tip is to not sleep on toggling your grenade launcher off in certain situations. We touched on it briefly already, but in some close range situations, the launcher can be really tough to use due to how much velocity it gives your nade throws. While there are some techniques to help with this, like bouncing your frags off the ground or off the walls, now that we have the option, it's not a bad idea to go back to throwing your nades the old-fashioned way sometimes. It'll be much easier to manipulate your nades around doors, windows, and other situations, throwing your nades with your arm rather than Fuse's launcher. And while you can pull off some sky nade plays with your launcher and even your Knuckle Cluster, generally, you're much better off throwing your nades if you're looking to time an explosion, as the launcher will send these things into outer space. One of the biggest strengths Fuse has is his ability to destroy enemy equipment and root out campers. Fuse has some of the easiest damage to deploy of any Legends kit, and between his Knuckle Cluster, Motherlode, and an extra grenade stack, you should have all the tools you need to destroy teams that try to camp on a rooftop or in a building. This is even more the case with the recent changes to Fuse's ultimate, as the ability to have anyone shown to his squad that's within his fire circle is huge when coming across a squad in a power position. If you can get good at landing Fuse's ult and learn the trajectory of his launcher, you will become lethal from a surprisingly far range. Plus, you'll always have damage tools at your disposal outside of just hitting your shots. While we touched on the fact that you can hold more nades as Fuse due to his passive, this ability is even stronger here in Season 10 with the addition of the Rampage LMG. It may not seem like a big deal, but being able to hold on to 2 thermites in one inventory slot makes carrying these nades to charge up the new LMG a lot more worthwhile. Other Legends without this passive would need to reserve 2 full slots to carry these thermites, likely having little to no room for extra frags or arc stars. However, Fuse can use only 1 slot and carry 2 full charges worth of thermites for the Rampage, while still holding on to stacked nades in another slot or 2. This passive completely opens up thermites as a viable pickup that you should be rocking with the new powerful Rampage LMG, while still allowing you to have room for other nades and loot. Don't get me wrong, you should still be carrying your arc stars and frags, but if you're running a Rampage and you come across some thermites, give this strat a go and I promise you won't regret it. And while you don't want to hold onto your ult too long, Fuse's ultimate is definitely one you don't want to waste. This ability works best when used with your teammates nearby and ready to follow up. Its strength lies in cutting off an enemy's escape, and you want to make sure they can't just turn on you when they panic. This ultimate is perfect for when you see an enemy out of position, cutting them off from assistance and revealing them to your team. And guys, don't be afraid to just throw his ultimate down around a building that you know has a couple enemies inside. While you might not land much damage, revealing these enemies and cutting off their options to run can be just as powerful as landing a bunch of damage on their shield. And lastly guys, comboing this ability with your teammates and learning how to position the ring just right so that you can land the flames right on a target will give you a ton more options with his ult. If you aim the ring off-centered so that the outer ring is on an enemy, you can land some really solid surprising damage. And while it's nice to get the newly added scan, the immediate damage on an enemy not ready for it is sometimes a little bit more valuable. Any CC provided to your team can set you up for a big Motherlode. Whether it's a Horizon Black Hole or a Valkyrie's Missile Storm, if you can time this ability right, you can get some serious damage down fast. While those tips will help you get started practicing your Fuse play, where you really will begin to master this legend is when you understand your role on a squad. As we mentioned earlier, Fuse's playstyle is very unique, and not having any mobility in his kit can be tough for players used to playing the faster offensive legends like Octane and Wraith. But guys, what makes Fuse so hard to master is the fact that his kit is built to be aggressive, busting down the doors and softening up the enemy with his explosions. Yet, he's very vulnerable if he's caught in close-range gunfights. His animations on his abilities are rather long, and they excel at initiating a fight at range, not reacting to an enemy's push. So getting a feel for the animation times and learning when you can actually afford to use them is going to help you out a ton in the long run. With this in mind, you want to be sure to play closely with your squad whenever possible, and be cautious of where you're pushing on the map. Fuse's kit requires you to have knowledge of enemy locations, as he wants to have time to use his abilities before engaging in a full-on gunfight. With this in mind, you should be looking to assist in your team's pushes, acting as artillery support for your squad as they maneuver through a POI. You're looking to stay outdoors so that you can make use of all of Fuse's abilities, preferably keeping a good vantage point to have clear sight lines for your launchers. If your squad is taking a fight, utilize your extra grenades and damaging abilities often to not only deal damage, but also to split enemies up within the fight. Using your Knuckle Clusters and Motherlode to disorient the enemy squad and separate them is the key to succeeding on Fuse. Think of yourself as the artillery gunner, keeping your eyes on the horizon, preparing to launch your munitions at anyone who dares to come in your range. Alright guys, no longer is Fuse the unused, underpowered legend from Season 8. It's been a long time coming, but Fuse is finally feeling at a point where he's a viable addition to the meta, instead of a fringe pick that, even when operated properly, brought little to a team. He packs more damage into his kit than any other legend in the game. And with some added utility and quality of life fixes, he's ready to claim his rightful place amongst the viable legends. And guys, if you're a Fuse main and we missed anything that you know about Fuse, make sure to tell us down in the comments below. But anyway guys, it's been valued. If you guys enjoyed the video, please remember to subscribe to the channel. And anyways, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.